continue with modern synthetic theory of evolution from the lesson Origin and Evolution of Life. Today we'll study about natural selection. Theory of evolution was developed by Charles Darwin and published in his book Origin of Species. Darwin explained that natural selection is a process behind evolution, or natural selection is the main driving force behind evolution. Then what is natural selection? Natural selection is a process in which organisms are better adapted to the environment, tend to survive and produce more number of offsprings. Or natural selection is a process by which better adapted individuals with useful variations or favorable variations are selected by the nature and leave greater or more number of progenies or offsprings. Industrial melanism is the best example of natural selection. These are the species of moths that are found in Great Britain. One is Biston betularia and the other one is Biston carbonaria. Biston betularia were more in number compared to Biston carbonaria before industrialization. Biston betularia, these are grey white winged moth, and Biston carbonaria, these are black winged moth. Now these are nocturnal. These species of moths, these are nocturnal, and during daytime they rest on the lichen covered trees. You have already studied about lichens in 11th standard. Lichen is an association of algae and fungus. It is also used as a spice in kitchen, that is spices. Dagadful we call it in Marathi. So the trees, these are covered with lichens, and the color of lichens is black and greyish in color. Now due to this grey white winged moth, they can easily camouflage themselves on the lichen covered trees, and black winged moth, they became victim to the predators. Let's see the diagram of this. These are the two moths. This is Biston betularia, which is with grey white wings, and this is Biston carbonaria, which has black wings. Now these Biston betularia or grey white winged moth, it can easily camouflage on this tree. Now this is the diagram of a tree which is covered by lichens. So all these whitish part you can see, this is lichen, whereas this black winged moth, it can be easily located by the predatory birds, and hence it became victim to the predatory birds. Now due to this, the number of these moths, it get reduced, and the number of these moths, it increased. But later on, during industrial revolution, when large number of industries came up, the condition was changed. These industries, they released black sooty smoke which killed the lichens on the trees, and due to pollution, the bark or the trunk of the trees, it also turned black. Because of this, the black winged moth, they camouflaged themselves with the background, and grey white winged moths were easily located by the predators, and they became victim to the predatory birds. Now the number changed. The black winged moth, they increased in number, and the number of grey white winged moths was reduced. Now this was an important trait, and these are called as useful variations, which are transmitted from one generation to next generation. Another example is the neck of giraffe. Now during evolution, the short necked giraffe, it turned to long necked giraffe. Again, this was also an useful variation which was accepted or selected by the nature as it helped the long-necked giraffe to survive as they can eat the leaves from the trees also. So such useful variations are transmitted from one generation to next generation as they are selected by the nature, and hence the name natural selection. The next one is isolation. Isolation, how will define isolation, or what is isolation? Isolation is separation of population into smaller units which prevents interbreeding between them. This is called as isolation. There are two types of isolation. The one is geographical isolation and the other one is called as reproductive isolation. The basic difference between these two isolations is geographic isolation. It occurs due to geographical barriers such as rivers, oceans, mountains, glaciers, and these geographical barriers, they prevent interbreeding between the organisms. Reproductive isolation, it occurs due to change in genetic material, gene pool, and structure of genital organs. Now these groups which are separated due to geographical barriers, these are exposed to environmental factors or different kind of environmental factors, and they acquire new traits by mutation. The example of geographic isolation is Darwin's finches. So first we'll see the diagram of this bird, that is called as finch. So this is the original bird or the original species of finch. Now these finches, there are about 13 species of finches found on Galapagos Islands. The most important differences between these species or these finches are in size and shape of their beaks, which are highly adapted to different food sources. The different species of finches are grey warbler finch, mangrove finch, woodpecker finch, large, medium and small tree finch. Now the shape and size of the beak, it changes depending on the environment in which they live. See the different shape and sizes of the beaks. Some of them are very strong and sturdy or powerful beaks to crack the nuts and seeds. Then some of them are pointed to eat the insects. This is short beak to eat the buds of flower. Then this type of beak, it feeds on fruits and flowers. Now this type of beak, it eats the nectar from the flowers. Now these finches, with the help of this beak, it forages for insects that are found under the bark. This beak of finch, it helps to feed on nectar from the flowers. Now this parrot-like beak of the finch, it helps to search for beetles. This type of beak, which is short but it is strong and sturdy, it helps to crush the seeds. So these are the different types of beaks of the finches. Now why it happened, or why this variation is there in the beaks of the finches? It is due to the environmental conditions, and according to their environment they adapted themselves to the changing environment. So Darwin developed his theories after his adventures. He observed that creatures found on the islands were similar to those found on the mainland but were slightly different. He came to a conclusion that species are specially modified to their environment, and that's why they differ from one another.